how do you figure out on a day-to-day basis or in your planning, what's the best way to contribute to the team as a staff support engineer, and whether you sometimes struggle with finding out how to best make use of your time in that position?
Yes, I definitely sometimes struggle with finding out how to make the best use of my time. I do want to share a funny story about this particular question, though, and it comes with a little tech pro tip, I guess. In Google Docs, which is where we collected these questions, in Google Docs, you can enable notifications. And by default, you get notifications when you're tagged, right? But you can change that to get notifications for all changes, which I do for a number of documents, like, for example, the senior leadership agenda document for support. So that way I automatically know what they are talking about instead of having to look it up. And I enabled notifications for the doc with these questions as well. And Daniel paused when typing this question. And so I got a notification that said, "Do you sometimes struggle with?" And that's it. And I was like, yeah. Oh my God, yeah, so much with everything. We certainly struggle, even as staff SEs. So specifically struggle with trying to find how to make best use of our time, for sure. I would say that might be the hardest challenge. And figuring out like what is the best way to contribute to the team. Super hard. You kind of, you do have to trust, like I mentioned in another response, how we have our one-on-ones, right? And we would get told by our managers, by our directors, if we were on the wrong track. So you do have to trust that. But it's hard. It's definitely tricky, because if the day had 48 hours, I would still not find time to do everything that I would want to do, and not just want to do, but think that would be useful and want to do. So prioritization, one of the hardest challenges out there, for sure.
Thanks, Daniel. So how do I figure out and determine the best way to contribute to the team as a staff? And do I sometimes struggle with finding the best use of my time? And I think most of the time I have a general idea of what needs to be done, because as staff, we're quite autonomous. We're managers of one, well, masters, in fact. So we're quite self-serving in where we need to be. However, the directors do keep us in check if we need that, and they'll always let us know about any particular OKRs or company directives that we need to be mindful of. But most of the time, we have an idea of how we can best contribute to the team. But in keeping in line with that, I like to think about the impact that the task that I work on will have on the team and our customers. So, for example, if I spend X time on this, will X people benefit from it? And does it make sense for me as a staff to work on something, or could I delegate the task to someone else? Because part of being staff is knowing if you're the right person for the job. I think, because sometimes it is about inspiring other people to take lead, or, just seeding some thoughts in others that, they might have unconsciously been thinking about, and then let them run off with it. So yeah, that's where I like to, plant those thoughts and ideas. But, back to, how I spend my time, and if I struggle with where I should spend it, yes, definitely. It is definitely a developing area for me, and it just goes back to what I was saying about impact, and just thinking about how that would be perceived with the team and customers, and that's how I guide my thoughts on if I should do it or not. But just like everyone else, I think there are tasks that are more fun than others. So, for me, I like coding. And using coding as an example, sometimes it's not the best use of my time, but I think all of us do need to get away from some of the more mundane and impactful tasks from time to time, and just work on something a bit more fun. So, there's a bit of a balancing act there.
Determining the best way to contribute to the team as a staff support engineer is usually a matter for me of being informed and aware of GitLab's business objectives, OKRs, epics of interest, working groups, things like that, and then discussing with my manager which problems make the most sense for me to help solve. And I think that that was largely true as I was a senior on my way to staff. But now that I am a staff, the component that I focus on as much as which problem should I solve is for any particular problem, am I solving it directly? Or am I helping to support someone else who is focusing on solving this problem? One of the important things about being a staff support engineer that I particularly enjoy is continuous improvement and upskilling the entire team. So there are problems that I could solve, but if I solve it directly or focus on it directly, that removes the opportunity for someone else to build up expertise in that area. And so I think a lot about getting it right, which things make sense for me to solve, which things make sense for me to help someone else solve. And then when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about the word struggle. The thing that really kind of came up for me is this, is like impatience when it comes to prioritization. Like sometimes there will be a problem, and the right thing is to say, we're not going to solve that problem right now. And that can be really frustrating and unsatisfying, especially when that problem is at times especially acute. But it is really important to be able to have enough perspective to understand when not right now is the correct answer for a particular problem. What I love about this at GitLab is that we have a strong culture of like writing things down. And so whenever we do decide, okay, we're not going to solve X problem right now, we write it down, we record why we're not solving it right now. And then as time goes by, we can record new observations when there are new occurrences of that problem. And then when it does come time to solve it, we have plenty of information to help inform our approach. I've been at GitLab about 4.5 years at the time of this recording. And so I've seen that play out. I've seen us go from, we're not going to solve that right now, to problem solved. And that helps me feel very comfortable with there is a problem, and right now we're not going to do anything about it because we're focusing on these other problems right now.
Yeah, determining the best way to contribute to the team and actually doing it are kind of two different things, Daniel. Creating training, documentation, things like that that would enable the team to do something independently and in a scalable way would clearly be the way to go. But most of the time, I'm looking for solutions to individual customers' difficult problems. I think this is particularly difficult in support. I suspect previous staff support engineers had the same challenges, and it will be interesting to hear from my 3 colleagues as well. In terms of best use of my time, ultimately, there's always a bunch of fires for me to put out. So it's really a question of whether or not there's something I ought to be doing first.